Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Empire State Development's Division of Minority and Women's Business Development, MWBE webinar series. Today's webinar topic is Getting in Front of the Buying Cycle. My name is Caitlin Colbert, Business and Development Associate at Empire State Development. I have a wonderful guest here with us today, Lauren Linakis, Business Advisor at the Farmingdale Small Business Development Center. However, before we begin, let's take care of some housekeeping issues. We've already muted your phone so participants do not hear a lot of background noise during the presentation. We are recording this webinar. The recording and presentation will be emailed to all registrants. We encourage you to ask questions through the chat and Q&A boxes regarding the material covered in this presentation. Lastly, there will be a quick poll displayed following the presentation. We welcome and encourage any feedback that you can provide. And now, without further ado, I introduce you all to Lauren.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Caitlin, for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here to talk about getting in front of the buying cycle, marketing to the government. Before we begin, I just wanted to go over what I do at the Small Business Development Center. So I'm a business advisor there, and we provide free and confidential one-on-one business counseling to anyone who's looking to start their business or grow their business. We're funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration in New York State, and we've been in existence since 1985. To date, we've assisted over 33,000 businesses, helping them to invest over $490 million in the area's economy, and we've helped her create or save over 19,000 jobs. I also want to highlight that since March 2020, we've assisted over 2,200 businesses access COVID relief, totaling over $44.6 million. So if you are interested in any COVID programs out there, you have questions about them, please let us know, as we are working with businesses to help them access the relief they need in these unprecedented times. We have 23 centers in New York State. So I'm located at Farmingdale State College. We serve businesses in Nassau and Western Suffolk. But chances are there is a small business development center located near you. On Long Island, we have one in Stony Brook, and New York City, there's a bunch. And then upstate New York, we have definitely a good amount that I imagine that wherever you're located, there is one close to you. So I'd be happy to connect you to the SBDC that is closest to you. As I mentioned before, we are free. And we help with all different types of business questions, whether it's startup questions like, how to create a business plan or how to do your financials. I help with government procurement, any kind of certification like MWBE, 8A, HubZone, DBE. We also help with new product development, cost analysis, loan information, exporting, marketing plans. So really anything that you have a question on in your business, we can probably help you with. And so please reach out to us. You'll have my contact information at the end where you can get in touch with me. Okay, so let's go through what we're going to learn today for this workshop. The businesses are going to better understand how to communicate their value to the government. You'll be able to create marketing strategies for the government. You'll understand when and how to market to the government, and you'll understand how to create a capability statement. So that's what we're going to do today. So first of all, what is marketing? Marketing is the process of communicating your value, the value of a product or service, to your customers. So how do we communicate this? You have to create a strategy. So let's go through what a core marketing strategy looks like. You have to identify your core company capabilities, determine your company's capacity to perform those capabilities, and then you develop a marketing plan. You review your market. So who is your target market? An overview of your target customer. What are your goals? What are the strategies and tactics that you're going to use to reach those customers? And what is your budget? Usually, we preach the 80-20 rule. 80% of your budget should be used for strategies and tactics that you've done before, and 20% of your strategies and tactics should be for experimenting in different marketing tactics. Identify your targets of opportunity and make the calls. So that's going to be your core marketing strategy. And this is something that you should write down, have easily accessible to always refer to, and to really follow. Now, to create a marketing strategy, especially for the government, we need to understand how the government decides to purchase, when it decides to purchase, and who do they purchase from. So in terms of how the government purchases, it's usually a two-phase process. The first phase is usually behind closed doors. We don't see usually what happens in that process. This is where the agency meets. They talk about their mission. They determine what their needs are for the year. So let's, if the government's budget, starts October 1st, usually over the summer, they're going to meet and discuss what they need for the year. And then they determine, when they're going to release RFPs or bids and what the scope of services are going to be. So all of that is planning in that first phase. The second phase is kind of what we think about when we think about government contracting, is that then those requirements are released as solicitations. So the RFPs, the bids, the solicitations, they're released in public. You see them online, and you then apply for them. You're evaluated. There's some negotiation maybe, and then someone's awarded the contract, and then there's contract administration, performance, and closeout. So there are these two phases of how procurements are created. Now, how do we get in front of the buying cycle? A lot of people, when they think about government contracting, as I mentioned, they think about that second phase, going online, looking at the solicitation and applying for it. And sometimes that can be really hectic. Like maybe you go online, you see a solicitation and it's due in 2 days and you're chasing after it. You're scrambling to get your bid documents together. So my pitch to you, my argument to you is, let's try to get into the first phase. Let's try to get behind those closed doors and understand how agencies purchase, especially the agencies you want to sell to. You want to know when they're going to be planning their budget year, what they're looking for in vendors, and when those solicitations are going to come out. So you're not scrambling, so that you know that maybe in November or December, there's going to be a solicitation that's a good fit for you, and you could start planning now on applying for that. So how do you get into that first phase, that phase where the planning happens? The market research is the most important thing that you can do when you're looking to market to the government. You want to research who's buying, so which agencies are buying your goods or services. There are thousands of agencies out there. We're thinking about federal, state, city, counties. There's so many agencies, it's impossible to market to all of them. So you want to kind of determine which are the top agencies that are buying your goods or services. How they're buying. Do they buy small? Do they buy large? Do they use small businesses, MWBEs? How much they're buying, and who they're buying from. Who are your competitors? So these are the things that we want to determine. So how do we determine this? Well, we can research. The great thing about the government is that a lot of their information is public. So for the federal government, you can look on fpds.gov or usaspending.gov, and you can research in your industry code, in that NAICS code that you have. Everyone has a NAICS code. Everyone has an industry that they're participating in. You can research by NAICS code who bought your goods or services in the past year, past 2 years, past 10 years. The state has Open Book New York, and the city has Checkbook NYC. These are also ways for you to determine which are the agencies that are buying your goods or services. You can also research the present. You can see what's out there right now for you, and what is available. And so for federal, it's beta.sam.gov. For the state, it's the New York State Contract Reporter. And for the city, it's the city record. And then you could also their forecasts out, so you can research what's going to be happening in the next 6 to 12 months. So from this research, you can create a plan. You can pick 3 to 5 agencies that are your top purchasers. So as I mentioned, there are thousands of agencies out there. It really is impossible to market to everyone. So you want to be more targeted and say, which are the top 3 to 5 agencies that buy my good or service? How does the agency buy? As I mentioned, do they buy small purchases, large purchases? Do they use MWBEs mostly? Are they purchasing large amounts where large companies are really the only ones available to do the work? And then you could be a subcontractor. So there's a lot of information that we can discern from that. The buying cycle as well. Do they buy a lot of your goods or services in the fall, in the spring? Who do they buy from? Look at your competitors. Look at the people that have been awarded in the past. And are you able to be competitive with them? Are you able to capture the market, to bid directly on these projects? Or are you there mostly right now as a subcontractor? Maybe you're too small to be a prime on these contracts. When you're researching these agencies, they sometimes have a list of vendors for smaller purchases. If you see that an agency purchases a lot of your goods or services and it's maybe on the smaller side, they don't always have to go to bid. And so you want to see if they have a list of vendors that they pull from for smaller purchases that don't have to be necessarily publicized. You also want to do a deep dive into the agencies that you're targeting. Since you're only targeting 3 to 5, you can really research them and make a list of decision makers in that agency that you want to meet with. You can also research their doing business page, see what events they have. Really be very targeted in your research of these agencies. So how do you reach your top agencies and decision makers? Networking is such an important part of marketing to the government. So as I mentioned, do a deep dive of the agencies, visit their websites, go to their doing business page or their MWBE small business page. Look for opportunities to develop relationships with them. On these pages, they usually have a list of virtual meetings or industry days or webinars that they're having where you can connect with their small business liaisons. You also want to reach out to these small business liaisons one-on-one with your capability statement and your pitch. And you want to see if they can set up a meeting with you one-on-one to talk about what you can do for their agency. You also want to attend pre-bid conferences. When you see a solicitation that you're interested in, there may be a chance for you to do a walkthrough of the site, or there may be a virtual meeting where you can meet with the agency and ask questions about the bid. And so these are really important because you're, again, building connections with that agency. You also can connect with people that are bidding on the project. So if you see a project that may be too big for you, still attend that pre-bid conference because you can network with potential primes and you could be a sub on that project. So why is getting in front of these decision makers important? Well, when you're talking to an agency, you really get to understand what their problems are, what they look for in vendors. You can understand better what their schedule of purchasing is, what kind of purchases they're making in your industry. So intelligence gathering helps you get into that first phase of procurement where you're really understanding their buying process. You also get to understand better their discretionary spending. These opportunities are on the smaller side, and they do not have to be publicly advertised or open to bidding. So when you're talking to an agency and you're getting to know them and they're getting to trust you, they may reach out to you for those smaller purchases that don't have to be made public. For the federal government, it's $25,000 or less. For the state government, it's $50,000 or less. And for the city, it's $500,000 or less. The federal government has set aside for anything under $250,000 for small businesses as well. If they can identify 2 small businesses to do the work, they set it aside. So it has to be under $250,000, and they have to identify 2 small businesses. So if they know you and they identify another business that can do the work, they can make that set aside just for the small businesses to use. So it really is a really important part of government contracting to get out there, meet with the agency, meet with the decision makers, and let them know who you are. Now, when you're networking, you're going to be meeting with a lot of different people in the government. So I just wanted to highlight the 4 types of government customers that you may meet. The first is the contracting officer. These are the people that are responsible for all aspects of the solicitation process. When you see a solicitation online, there usually is a contact person. This is the contracting officer. They're responsible for releasing the solicitation, answering questions about the process, and they ultimately help decide who should be awarded a contract. Program managers or high-level decision makers. These are the influencers. They generate the contracting requirement and are responsible for executing the requirement. They make the buying decision. So they're the ones that are behind closed doors in those meetings saying, what do we need for our agency? And what should the contracting officer put in the solicitation? When should we award this contract? So they're really making those high-level decisions of what purchases are being made. The end user is the person that's actually using the product or service. So the contracting officer is not the person using the good or service. The contracting officer is just responsible for the solicitation process. Once a business is picked for or awarded a contract, they're then usually connected to the end user who's actually going to be using that product or service. They're really far removed from the contracting process, but they do have input sometimes on who is chosen if they feel strongly about a vendor or a proposal that they read. And a small business liaison or MWBE liaison. These are people that are responsible for meeting small businesses and connecting them to opportunities. They don't have a say in the buying process, but they can connect you to buyers in the agency. And they're usually the people you meet at networking events. So it's important to know who you're speaking to and create a pitch that speaks to that person's position. So for a contracting officer, you want to focus on the capacity to deliver. If they choose you for a project, they're really trusting you to perform on that project and perform on it well. Every contract is an act of trust. So you really want to focus on your capacity. The program manager is interested in big ideas. They're the ones making decisions on what will be purchased in the future. So you want to let them know, we know what your problems are and we can help you solve them. This is a great person also to introduce innovative products. If you have a new product, something that may be a little bit outside the box, if you introduce it to the program manager, they can then possibly say, we really want to bring this vendor in and use their products. Or we want to create a solicitation that really speaks to what this product can do. The end user, the person, if you meet the person that's actually going to be using your product or service, you really want to market to their pain points and show them that you understand what your product or service will be used for and how it will help their agency. And the small business liaison, you want to focus on diversity, but also capability. So in these days, it's not just enough to be certified. There's a lot of certified businesses out there. So you want to show them that you're certified because they want to bring you into the agency, but you also want to show them that you have the capability to do the work and really focus on your capacity. Because ultimately they only want to refer diverse but skilled businesses to contracting officers. Another way to get in front of the buying cycle is to respond to requests for information, requests for comments, or sources sought. This is where the agency asks you for information. They're not asking you to bid on anything, but they're saying that we have a project that needs to be completed, but we want to know who's out there that can complete it. So request for information, the agency advertises that it's seeking to learn about the options available to it when addressing a specific need. So maybe they have some landscaping issues and they want to know who's out there that can treat this type of tree and has treatment plans for this type of flower, let's say. And so as a business who does that, you can respond to that and say, I can do that. Here's my capability statement, and respond to any other questions that they may have about that. Request for comment. This is where an agency needs input on the solicitation structure and language. Maybe they want to know from the business community, does this solicitation look right to you? Does the terms and conditions look right to you? Is this an industry standard? So that I do see that from time to time. And sources sought. Sources sought are specifically from the federal government, and they're very similar to requests for information. They seek to collect and analyze information about the market to satisfy the agency needs. So you will respond to these with your capabilities, similar projects that you've conducted, and just your business information. Now, it's important for you to respond to these notices when you see them, because you can use them to create set-aside contracts. As I mentioned, the federal government, anything under $250,000 can be set aside as long as the government can identify two small businesses that can do the work. So if you don't respond to a sources sought, and no other small businesses respond to it, but it's under $250,000, they can't set it aside for small businesses. So you want to be sure that you're responding to these so that they know that you're a small business that can do the work and that they could possibly set aside it for you or small businesses. You also get a better idea of what the agency is looking for and know that in the future they're going to be releasing a solicitation for the work that you're doing. So you can create agency-focused marketing campaigns. Start emailing people in the agency, letting them know who you are and what you can do for that upcoming procurement. This is rare, but you can create single source awards. So let's say you knock it out of the park and you respond to a sources sought or a request for information. And it's really an amazing response where the agency is like, wow, this is the only business that we think that can really do this work. They have innovative ideas and they have a really special way of doing things. They may say, this is the only business that we've seen that can do this. And so we're going to award it to them without going to bid. It can happen. Ultimately, as I mentioned, it gives you a heads up that the agency is thinking about a procurement in your industry. So again, you're not scrambling in that second phase trying to apply for something, with a 2-day window to apply. You have a good idea, at least a few weeks in advance, that something's going to come out in the future. So it gives you time to market to them. And rarely, but this does happen, sometimes only respondents that people that respond to a sources sought or a request for information receive the RFP. So you just always want to respond because it provides a relationship to the agency with you. It allows you to market to them, and it gives you a heads up. So marketing materials you always want to have on hand when you're marketing to the government. Website is just so important. Updated with your contact information, pictures, services. The domain should be your business name or as close as you can get it. And you should have a dedicated government section. The government agencies, they're staffed with people just like you and me, and they do the same things that you and I do. If we see a business that we're interested in using, we want to Google them. And so you want to make sure that your website looks professional, is up to date, and has all of the information on it. Social media as well. When we Google, we're looking at your Facebook page, your Google page, House, Home Advisor, We want to see what your reviews are, what people say about you. So it's important to have those updated and have people write you really excellent reviews. Newsletters, targeted campaigns. You want to update your government customers on the type of work that you're doing. So, every so often you email your government contacts, let them know if you've done a new project, if you expanded your services, or if you got a recent certification. You also always want to have a capability statement. And so that's something that we're going to go through a little bit more in depth right now. So whenever you contact an agency, you need a capability statement. A capability statement is a one-page document that highlights a company's areas of expertise. It tells potential customers who you are, what you do, and what sets you apart from your competitors. It's a door opener. It's used to begin or refresh a relationship. It's used to obtain a decision-maker meeting. It's a tool used during meetings. It's used at meet and greets, and it's used as a follow-up to an introduction. It should be tailored to your target agency. Each agency has its own mission and focus, and the statement should speak directly to that. If you're meeting with a federal agency, you should have your federal certifications on your capability statement. If you're meeting with a state agency, you want to have your state certifications on there. You don't want to have kind of just one generic statement that you use for everyone. It must be clear and easy to understand. It should also be visually interesting because it's a marketing document. So you want to have your branding, pictures, colors, and it must be one page. The capability statement should demonstrate your capability, your ability to manage. What kinds of projects have you managed before? Your technical ability, so your education and training level, staffing, your core competencies, your capacity, equipment, staffing, and facilities. So there's 5 elements of a capability statement. So there's the title, you call it what it is, it's a capability statement. Your core competencies, past performance, differentiators, and your company data, certification, and codes. So I'm going to go through each of these. So your title. I just took this header from a capability statement I saw. It has their branding, it has some logos of certifications they have, and it has their contact information. The capability statement term is something that's widely used in government. It's a term that all decision makers understand and know, and they always ask for a capability statement. So you just want to have capability statement right at the top of the page. You want to have your branding, your logos, color, style, and include your contact information. You always need a point of contact. It shouldn't just be like a generic, email. It should be someone who they can call. Your core competencies. So the section title should read core competencies. You can create a short introductory statement. So identify what your company does best. And it could also include your mission statement. And you want to be laser focused on the agency's requirements and needs. Relate the company's core competencies to the agency's specific needs. So if you're just going to an event and you're meeting with different agencies, you don't have to create a capability statement for every single agency you're meeting at a networking event. But you should have one, like I said, for state agencies, for city agencies, and for federal agencies. But if you're meeting if you're having a one-on-one meeting, you definitely want to research that agency and relate everything back to that agency and what they're looking for. Keyword heavy bullet points. So for example, I took this from a sample capability statement. This was their core competency list. So they have right away supply chain management, order management, logistics management, optimization, visibility, creative global 3PL solutions. So it's very clear from those bullet points what they do. Same thing here. Very easy to understand: roofing, general contracting, liquid applied roofing, waterproofing. You have a very good idea right from the top of what this company does and what their expertise is. Past performance. Section title should read past performance. It should list past customers for whom similar work was performed. So this is important, especially if you're meeting one-on-one with an agency. Maybe you have an understanding of what kind of work they've had done in the past in your industry, and you want to list past customers that are similar to them or work that has been similar size to them. Show the benefit to the agency. Again, as those similarities of projects will say, you know, we've done similar work before that you need. So we have the history to do that. Your past performance does not have to be with the government. It can be with the commercial side of things. So you should list 3 to 4 with a short description of work. So this is a sample past performance. So we have 3 customers with, you know, 1 bullet point each on what they did, what this company did for them. Or if you have a really knockout, amazing past performance description, you know, you've done something that was truly amazing or very similar to what an agency needs, you can do something like 1 past performance, but make it really a little bit more detailed. Differentiators. So the differentiator section can be a bit difficult. You're listing what sets you apart. Is it your location, training, relationships, experience, technology, maybe your quality assurance program, certain industry certifications, your socioeconomic certifications? I say sometimes because, like I said, a lot of people are certified as MWBE, 8A HubZone. So these can be differentiators, but you want to also think of different ones as well, not just your certifications, because so many people have them. Relate how this benefits the agency, prime, or team, how it separates you from the competition. And you want to list 2 to 3 rather than a long list of mediocre examples. So questions to think about as you're coming up with your differentiators. Why do your best customers use you? What is it about your staff that gives you the advantage over your competitors? How and why is your company the best choice for the needs of this opportunity or agency? Why are your solutions better than the others that are available? And is your business located near the agency? I tell the story a lot if you've been on my other webinars, but I had a client who was doing AV and found a bid for an agency. And one of the requirements of that bid was that the company had to be, you know, kind of like a moment's notice away in case there was ever an AV emergency. And their business was located like a block away from the agency, very close. That's a differentiator because they can be there at a moment's notice. They're located a block away from the agency. So anytime the agency would need them, they could just take a walk over and help them with their AV needs. And finally, you want to list your company data. Brief company history with your mission statement, when your company was started, where you're headquartered, and where you operate from. So as you can see here, you know, Meridian Widgets, it's dedicated to manufacturing the highest quality widgets. It was founded in 2015 by John Doe. It's headquartered in Springfield, USA, and it manufactures widgets for industrial, commercial, residential, and custom applications. And it, you know, gives some locations as well. So kind of a short background stating the history of the company. You also want to list out your DUNS number, your CAGE code, which is for federal government, your NAICS codes, product service codes, which are for federal, NIGP codes. You know, it depends on who you're marketing to. If it's a federal capability statement, you want to have your product service codes and your NAICS codes. If it's New York State or New York City, you want to have your NAICS codes and your NIGP codes. Do you accept credit cards? Do you have certifications, permits or licenses, your contact information, and any social media pages? So capability do's and don'ts. Do focus on your customer. Be brief, 1 page to the point. Use bullet points. Create several tailored statements. Make it visually interesting and convert it to a PDF. You don't want to send a Word document. Everyone has different versions of Word and it can come out kind of funky on different people's computers. PDF is, everything looks the same as on your computer and my computer. So definitely, convert it to a PDF. So final thoughts for this presentation. Research is the first step to understanding how to engage with the government. So researching is so important, as I hope that you've understood from my presentation. And you can meet virtually with your local small business development center to understand how to market your business to the government specifically. I also wanted to highlight that we have a system called BidLinks that will scan bids to your email. So it definitely makes your life easier. If you're interested in working with the government, this system will scan bids nationwide, or if you just wanted to scan to New York or New Jersey, it will scan all the bids that are public, federal, state, city, counties, and send it to your email, and it's a free service. So if you're serious about government contracting and think it's a good space for you, you should definitely meet with your SBDC to get signed up for that service. So that's my presentation. I have my contact information here, and I'd be happy to take questions from anyone who has them about anything in this presentation or government contracting.
Great, thank you, Lauren. It looks like we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box right now. If you have those questions, just feel free to type them over in the Q&A box, and we'll address those with any of we have about 20 minutes of remaining time. So the first question is, what are the best ways to find your top 5 agencies? For instance, we are an advertising agency that does commercials, web videos, and digital videos. What are the best websites for us to go to find contracts we can bid on?
Yes, so I'm going to pull up that slide. So this slide right here, this lists right here, the researching the past. These are the websites you want to go to that you can see what in the past has an agency purchased. So for federal, it's FPDS or USA Spending. For state, it's Open Book New York, and city, it's Checkbook New York. And you can pull up Excel spreadsheets and download them and manipulate them to see, okay, which are the agencies that have bought the most from us? And so you can then determine which are the 3 to 5 that are your biggest purchasers, and then do more. These websites have so much information, so you can see how much those purchases were for. Are they small purchases, large purchases? You can see who they awarded them to, so you can research the companies who are your competitors, and just do a really deep dive into those agencies and how they purchase.
So it looks like we have a few about distributing the presentation and recording. We will, or I should say, I will be sending out a copy of the presentation and recording. It'll either be later this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So the next question is the end user does not want to spend time speaking with us, saying that if they were to spend time with us, they would need to be doing this with others. And will not have time to do anything else. What should I do?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that will not want to talk to you, unfortunately. You can't make them talk to you. But I would say, just try to find different people in the agency and who'd be willing to speak with you. It takes a lot of time, but really, the small business liaisons or the MWBE officers are great resources to start with. They can connect you to different people in the agency. Your own research can help you see, who are the decision makers, who are other end users. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's some people that are just not willing to speak to vendors, but there are other people that are really open, so it's kind of hit or miss.
Is the process the same for finding contracts nationwide? And can someone from one state find a contract in another state?
Yes. So, for federal, these websites, you can research contracts all over the country in one state or another state. That's for federal. I gave you how to research in New York State and New York City. I don't know if each individual state has these types of websites. You have to see if like, let's say you're really interested in doing business with Texas. If Texas state has a open system like Open Book New York, or city in Texas has a system like Checkbook NYC like New York City does. You'd have to research those individual sites. But for federal, you can research any state. And I think there was a second part of that question. Was there a second part?
Oh, sorry, the second part was, can someone from one state find a contract in another state?
Yes, definitely. So like, as I mentioned, our BidLink system does scan contracts from all over the country. You could scan from certain individual states. Or if you wanted to do it on your own, you can research which states, what websites on each state you should be looking at. Like with New York, it's New York State Contract Reporter. But in another state, it's a different, website for their state. But you can absolutely do business in other states. I've had a lot of businesses that I've worked with that have done work in other states as well.
While you're mentioning BidLinks, is BidLinks free, and how do you sign up?
Yeah, BidLinks is free, and you have to be a client of the SBDC to get access to it. So it depends on where you're located. You can, Google the SBDC that's closest to your city, or you can contact me and I could find the SBDC that is located closest to you. On our website, NYSBDC.org, I think. Let me just look that up real quick. There's actually a link that you can use to say like you're interested in SBD services, and they'll send you to the closest SBDC near you. Let me just look up that website for a second. So it's nysbdc.org. I could put that in the chat.
Perfect. I was just trying to type it.
I'll put that nysbdc.org. Oh, I sent it to you only. Let me send it to everyone. Okay. All right. What other questions are there?
I sometimes find discretionary purchasing opportunities for MWBEs, but by the time I contact the agency, they already have a vendor in mind. When is the right timing to convince the agency to choose my company?
Yeah, so for discretionary purchases, you want to get, as I mentioned, like talk to the agencies as soon as you can. As soon as you identify the 3 to 5 agencies that you want to work with, you really, do a deep dive into them, talk to them, ask them if they have a list of vendors for discretionary purchases and how you can be a part of that list. And then hopefully they reach out to you when they have discretionary purchases. That's usually the best way to get those discretionary purchases. I mean, what's great about discretionary purchases is that they don't have to be made public, and that they can reach out to you directly. But the bad thing about discretionary purchases is that they're not made public. So sometimes you don't know about them, or you hear about them not in the right time frame. So I understand what you're saying. But really, talking to the agency and really building a good relationship with them is a great way for them to then say, you know what, we trust this business, we know them, and we'll let them know about this discretionary purchase.
One of my biggest challenges is finding the right business codes. We offer unique service, CPR and AED training and AED products. I've often missed bids because they were advertised under other codes. Any tips for finding the right codes?
You can look at the current opportunities out there in your industry. we'll go back to that, like on beta.sam.gov, on New York State Contract Reporter, research the present and see, in those, type in keywords of your business, see how they're classified, what NAICS codes they're classified under, what product service codes they're classified under, and really play around with it. Because I understand there are certain industries that are hard to categorize or pinpoint with these NAICS codes. And really it's up to the contracting officer on how they choose to classify something. So they may be wrong when they classify something as one thing and on the NAICS code, but it really should be another. So looking to see how the contracting officers classify different things will help you, I guess, in, maybe there's a NAICS code or a product service code out there that you didn't think would fit, but they're using it. And you can, look at what has been classified in that, in the present.
Are discretionary purchases only for commodities? If so, why is this?
No, it can be for services as well. Maybe you don't see a lot for services because it may be above the threshold, because those thresholds are yearly thresholds. So, janitorial work, let's say, there may be a janitorial contract for $25,000, which is discretionary, but maybe that agency uses $100,000 in a year of janitorial services. So that $25,000 discretionary, so what should be discretionary is not discretionary because in a year's time, that agency will go above that $50,000 threshold. So services are sometimes not in discretionary because they can be larger. They're usually on the larger side, so they're not under that threshold. So that's why you might see, like, for the commodities, it's more common, but discretionary can be for services or for commodities.
Next question is, sometimes an advertisement specifically states that it is a notice of sole source procurement exempt for advertising. Does this mean that someone else is selected to do the work?
That's right. So remember when I mentioned in the presentation that if you knock something out of the park, like knock a source of sought out of the park or request for information, and they say, there's only this one business that can really do this work, or they know you and they say, this business has a really innovative product and we know that they're the only ones that can really do this right for us. They can justify and say, we're going to award it to this business without putting it out to bid. And that they do have to notify the businesses that it was awarded to a sole source vendor, that it wasn't put out to bid, and they're just making you aware of that.
Where is the best place to get assistance crafting a solid capability statement?
Well, you can talk to your Small Business Development Center, and we can help you. We can read over what you've done. We don't write the capability statement for you, but you take a crack at it. We can send you some samples. You can write it, and then we review it and say, okay, well, you should fix this or add that or take out this.
What motivates the end user to hire a MWBE firm? Some end users stated that hiring a new MWBE firm would only rock the boat.
Okay, yeah. So, an agency like us, right? They're people like us. They find a vendor that they like, and they want to keep using that vendor because they know that vendor is going to do well for them and be good to them, complete the work. So that's maybe what the agency was saying to you, that they have a vendor that they use right now and they're happy with them, and they may extend their contract. So that is a real issue, right? That business is an incumbent, and they have an advantage over new businesses because they've done the work, they're familiar with the agency, and the agency likes them. So that's a real issue that you may come in contact with. What motivates an agency to use MWBEs is that they have a 30% goal. The New York State agencies have a 30% goal. So let's say they're not using an MWBE, in the past, and the contract is expiring. They need to put out a new contract, and you're a new MWBE that has experience and seems to be capable, and you're offering a good price. They may say, you know what, we want to use this MWBE because we need to meet our 30% goal. And so this company does seem capable, has the right experience, and so we're going to use them. It's not enough just to be MWBE. You have to have the capabilities, the experience. You have to meet all the minimum requirements of the bid. So definitely trying to get a contract from an incumbent is hard. But if you show that you have the right experience and you've talked to the agency and met with them and they feel comfortable with you, it's a possibility that you could get that in the future. Okay, Lynn, I don't hear you.
So it looks like I got a question about payments. Feel free to message me offline about this. We do have an internal compliance team that can address those questions. Oh, can you show the slide that has the website for bids and contracts?
This one right here. So this one has the present, so where you can research federal, state, and city. Right here are the present contracts.
And there's something else that I wanted to mention quick. Once you are completing this research on the state side, if there's any particular agency that you want to connect with, just feel free to reach out to the business development team here, and we can provide you some key contacts for those.
That's great.
Oh, the bid site?
Oh, they're looking for bid links?
Oh, bid link.
Oh, so I didn't, I don't have a website for that because that's through our center. We sign you up for that. So there isn't a way for you to go to bid links and sign up for it. You would have to go through our center and we do it for you.
Yeah, and Lauren typed that over in the chat box. It's right on the SBDC website that she mentioned to find the SBDC that's closest to you, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, the website I just sent over, you can see which are the closest SBDCs to you. You could sign up for an SBDC to contact you that's closest to you. I would say all of our SBDCs have very good customer service. We try, if you contact us, we usually try to get back to you in at least a day, I would say. So, we really try to be really responsive. So definitely, you're not typing in your information to avoid and no one's going to contact you. And you could also always, I'll give you my email again as well.
Great. So that looks like that's all the time for questions that we have. I'm just going to display a quick poll up on your screen, so you can let us know how we did on the webinar today and give us your feedback. Everyone should be able to see that. So just take a few seconds and just respond. Great. I'll leave that open for the next minute or so. I just wanted to thank Lauren for joining us today and for the insightful webinar. Just a couple of quick reminders. The recording will be emailed with the presentation either later today or early tomorrow. Sometimes the Zoom recording takes a little bit to send over to me. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, September 14th, and the topic is, did you know Paycheck Protection Loan Forgiveness? The webinar calendar for September will be posted on our website shortly, and you should be receiving that from the contract system as well. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Caitlin.
All right, and I'm just gonna end this